This is episode 80 of the Fitness in Post podcast. To access the show notes for this episode, please visit fitnessinpost.com/80. This episode is sponsored by Geek Desk. Geek Desk provides high-quality adjustable height desks. With the simple click of a button, you can change the height of your desk from sitting to standing in seconds, which can help you become more productive, ease and prevent pain, stay healthy, and live longer. I've owned a Geek Desk myself for years, and I love it. They are strong, durable, and, dare I say, even quite sexy. To learn more about the different options that Geek Desk offers, visit fitnessinpost.com/geekdesk. This episode is sponsored by Cinemoti. Cinemoti produces high-quality, royalty-free, and post-friendly second-unit stock and visual effects footage for filmmakers. You can find their second-unit collection at cinemoti.com. That's CINEMOTI.com. And as a listener of the Fitness in Post podcast, we're offering you an exclusive 15% off discount code that's good for any order. Just enter FIP15 during checkout. Again, that's FIP15 for 15% off any order. My name is Zach Arnold. I'm a film and television editor and the creator of Fitness in Post. I've spent many years working brutally long hours in a dark room and battled numerous health problems due to the sedentary nature of my career, and that's what led me to building Fitness in Post. Whether you work in post-production like me, or if you're a designer, programmer, animator, composer, or anyone working a sedentary job all day, we'll help you learn how to sit less, focus more, eat better, and bring health and wellness back into your life. You spend all day fixing it in post, now it's time for some fitness in post. Hello and welcome to the Fitness in Post podcast, where it is my mission to help you optimize the most powerful operating system that you have, yourself. My guest today is Blake Calhoun, a jack-of-all-trades filmmaker who directs, edits, shoots, produces. Let's just say that Blake has lived in the indie film trenches and he knows his way around many facets of this business. In addition to being a filmmaker, Blake is also a father of 2 young kids, 6 and 4, so he is no stranger to balancing work and family as well. And as a full disclaimer, Blake is the owner of Cinemoti, one of the sponsors of this podcast. But today's episode has nothing to do with Cinemoti or the technology of filmmaking. Today's episode is all about Blake's journey over the last couple of years to live a healthier life while also balancing the craziness of being an editor and a filmmaker. Through a series of fairly simple lifestyle changes, Blake has lost over 30 pounds and he has completely transformed his life and the way he feels, and it was easier than you might think. But before we get to our interview, I would like to announce that I will now be doing a podcast Q&A episode every month. I receive quite a few questions via email and Facebook on a regular basis that are pretty common, and I figured that it could actually be really helpful to start answering some of those questions for my whole audience rather than just for the same individuals over and over that were asking the questions. And I've also brought on the company Athletic Greens to provide a monthly prize for those who submit the questions that I answer. So here's how it works. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer that fits within the general topics that we discuss on the show, which includes activity and movement in the workplace and at your workstation, nutrition, productivity, life balance and stress management, as well as questions as they might relate to career advancement in post-production, just go to fitnessinpost.com/questions to submit your question. And for everyone that I read on the show, I will send that person a Fitness in Post t-shirt and a blender bottle. And then what I'm going to do is a random drawing amongst those winners, and one person a month will receive a 30-day supply of my favorite green supplement on the planet, Athletic Greens. I discovered this stuff via Tim Ferriss, and I have to say it is fantastic. I drink 1 tablespoon with water in the morning, and I get 100% of my daily required amount of greens. Plus, it doesn't taste like the bottom of a shoe like most green powders. It actually tastes really good, and I like it. I look forward to it every single morning. So if you want to learn more about Athletic Greens, all you have to do is visit fitnessinpost.com/greens. And now, without further ado, my interview with Blake Calhoun. I'm here today with Blake Calhoun, who is a jack of all trades, director, producer, editor, cinematographer. He's done web series, commercials, all kinds of cool stuff. So, Blake, it is a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me, Zach.
And I also will have to provide one caveat, is that you are the owner and creator of Cinemody, which is one of my podcast sponsors. And there's really no connection between the two because we're going to be talking about your own personal story. But for full disclosure, you are technically one of the sponsors of my podcast.
That is true, yes.
But frankly, that has nothing to do with why we connected. That's completely tangential. The reason that you and I actually know each other goes way, way back in the day. I guess it would have been, like 6 or 7 years ago now, when I was editing and working on The Band and Way. You were heavy into the world of directing and editing web series as well. So you and I connected, I believe, remind me and correct me if I'm wrong, but because we were both nominated for Streamy Awards, correct?
I can't remember if I was nominated that year or not, but I was in 2009 and I believe 2010, I forget. But I had met you through Mark Gant and Jesse, who produced and directed and starred in that show. And we met in Hollywood at the awards. Yeah, you were the editor, and I guess you guys won big that night.
Yeah, so it's our story goes way back, and since then we've been connected via email, via social media, and I know that from the very beginning you were interested in and supportive of Fitness in Post, and then you reached out to me, I guess it would have been maybe 6 months or a year ago, and said, hey, love what you're doing. I have this new product that I want to get out to people, and I'd love to be a sponsor, and that was that. But like I said, we're not really here to talk about sponsorship. We're not here to talk about Cinemody, although it'll probably be nice and let you do a 60-second pitch at the end of the show. But the reason we're actually here is because I have kind of watched you go through your own personal transformation via social media when it comes to your health. What I wanted to do today was just kind of give the audience a little bit of a picture of what your daily life looks like, what you were dealing with in the past as far as your health, and the changes that you've made. So this is just very much a personal story today that I hope will inspire others to make the same changes. So to get started, I just want to give people a little bit of a background of what your life looks like on a daily basis, what you're involved with, and just let's give people an overview of what you do now. Then let's go backwards, let them know what your life used to look like and what some of the roadblocks you were hitting and how you've made those changes. So let's start there.
I pretty much make my living as an editor and a director doing commercials and corporate video and indie film, as we talked about. And like a lot of people that listen to your show, when you're sitting in an edit bay all day, you're very sedentary. And so I was very sedentary in the past. And now the main thing I do is I have a Fitbit, and I try to hit my 10,000 steps every day, which I almost never do, by the way, but I'm working on that. I set alarms to get up and move throughout the day. The main thing I do with my diet that I changed from a complete 180 is I do no soda and I eat no fast food, which is so even crazy for me to say because as a filmmaker, I used to just live on Diet Coke and Wendy's or McDonald's or whatever just to go grab something quickly and come back and keep working. And so the main thing I do now is I work out. I'm not a heavy workout guy, but I work out with weights. I used to also do a ton of static state cardio and treadmill and never got anywhere with it. And my eyes were open one day to the realities of how strength training actually burns fat. I don't know, that took me a while to understand. And so basically it's staying active and just eating right. And it sounds real simple, and it is now that I've been doing it a while. But it's coming to work, editing. I've got 2 young kids. I take care of the kids and just stay active. And it's really, really made a big difference in my health and wellness, which is my ultimate goal besides vanity. You want to look a little better.
Well, it's funny that you use the word simple. I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I always tell people that there's a gigantic chasm between the two words easy and simple. Saying something is easy means that, it doesn't require much effort. You don't have to put too much into it to get the results that you want. Simple means that it's easy to understand, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy to implement and stick with and get results from. So I'm very glad you used the word simple because, saying, I just need to move more and eat better. Well, clearly everybody knows that. Like nobody's listening saying, oh my God, I had no idea. You mean if I move more and I eat better, I'm going to be healthier? Like, nobody has that realization, but there's a gigantic difference between common sense and common practice. So what I want to talk about is kind of really digging into the nitty gritty of how you actually made those changes, because I highly doubt that anybody listening that probably has the lifestyle that you did, where they're living off of Diet Coke, Wendy's, and McDonald's, is thinking, well, this is healthy for me. So what I want to try and do is help people get to the point where it's now an afterthought and they don't have to struggle through it and say, well, how can I stop doing this? So let's go backwards. How long ago would this have been when you were living the life of Diet Coke and McDonald's and Wendy's and just running around and grabbing whatever you could? What amount of time are we talking about?
I made my change a year ago in March. And so a year and a couple months now. I would wake up. Well, first of all, it's one of those stories. I got married, I had kids, and when my wife got pregnant and gained weight, I gained weight with her and didn't take the weight off. And so I had battled just being, not grossly overweight, but overweight to where I probably wasn't healthy as I should have been for many years. And so my normal day, I would wake up. I might go to McDonald's. Well, I'd take my kids to school. Might go to McDonald's and get a McDonald's breakfast. And then I would go to work, and then I would go for lunch. I would go have, you always have to get French fries or chips or whatever with your lunch. And then I would go back to work, and then I would eat. And then at night, I would usually eat at home with my wife. But sometimes we would get takeout or eat pizza or whatever. And just over time, obviously, that's hindsight's 2020. That will really affect your health.
Oh, yeah, that's an understatement. Saying it will really affect your health that's the tip of the iceberg. It can detrimentally affect your health in a negative way if you're consistently doing that over a long period of time. And I did a blog post about this, kind of using this analogy. I guess it would have been 4 or 5 months ago, about being sedentary all day long, but you can apply it to food as well, is the idea of the boiling frog, where if you take a frog and you throw it in boiling water, it's going to jump right out because it doesn't want to burn to death. But if you take a frog and you put it in lukewarm water and you slowly boil it, it's not going to move, and it's going to let you boil it because it doesn't feel the change, because it's gradual. And diet is the same way, where you can tell somebody, well, having 6 Diet Cokes a day or eating pizza every night, it's completely ruining your productivity, your cognitive function. And the response is, well, I feel all right. Like, I don't really notice a big difference. But that's because it's happening gradually over a period of time, where your body is so inflamed that it doesn't even know what it feels like to not be inflamed anymore. But then when you remove those stressors and you go through a process, and I actually went through the same thing. I was never at a point where I was really drinking soda habitually or eating fast food all the time. But I've admitted on the show that I've had like rolls of raw cookie dough for dinner before. So I'm not a health nut. I never have been, never will be. I'm just much more conscious of it. But when you remove all the bad things in your diet for a short period of time, you start to feel better, and then you reintroduce them, they hit you like a ton of bricks. So is that something that you've experienced as well? And we'll go back again, because I want to dig a little bit deeper into your past. But have you experienced, now that you've made these changes, the difference when you do have the things that you used to?
I do. Sometimes I actually get kind of an upset stomach, not to get too detailed there, especially when I eat a lot of heavy carbs or Italian food and such. But I've really gotten to the point, and this was a really great place to be, I have to say. And I remember reading a lot of blogs and such once I started this new lifestyle, to where you eventually get to where you don't even want that kind of food. And I'm there. I don't even crave it. I don't want it, partly because it makes me feel like crap. But also, I just don't even, it's like second nature now. It's not, and what you just said, I am by no means a health nut. I don't eat perfect. I still don't eat enough vegetables, but I also don't eat pizza anymore. I literally have not been to a fast food restaurant in over a year, which some people may not think that's a big deal, but when you ate fast food pretty much a daily basis for years of your life, and also I went cold turkey on the Diet Coke, which I used to drink so much Diet Coke, I would sometimes jokingly say, but I think it was a half truth, that only time I had water during the day was when I brushed my teeth. And so I've completely done a 180 on that as well. So yeah, I used to eat fast food all the time, but I don't even crave that stuff anymore. It's not even a craving. It's not even part of my thought process, which is a great place to be. And I remember reading some blogs that once you change your lifestyle, you don't go on a diet. You change your lifestyle, that that will actually happen. And it has for me, which has been great. So I'll even go to a restaurant with family or friends and they're having pizza or what have you, and I just have a salad. I don't even, it's not that I'm letting myself, feel bad, or the willpower thing that, oh, we feel bad eating pizza in front of you or something. It's like, no, I don't even care. It's not that I'm trying to be overly healthy. I don't crave that anymore. And so that's a good place to be.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to make, is the difference between diet and lifestyle. And anybody that's listened to this before, they know that I'm just going to be beating a dead horse. But that's the whole point of this program, is I don't believe in diets. Diets don't work. If you're going to be training for some type of athletic event and you need to get super strong and you need to, do whatever you need to do with your diet, that's different. Then you do go on a specific type of training diet. You do have a training regimen. But outside of that, there's really no reason you should be going on a diet per se. You just need to find the things that you change in your lifestyle to get to the point that you are, where you're saying, well, I didn't really need willpower. I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I just want that pizza. You're thinking, yeah, I don't really need it, because you've connected the way that you feel after you eat it with eating it itself, which is a very, very powerful place to be. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. And the other thing is, whenever you get in this right mindset, it's like dessert or anything along those lines. Like for Mother's Day was yesterday, and everyone had dessert, and I didn't even want dessert. It was just like, I'll have another iced tea. So it's just a mindset that I'm really happy that I've come to in my life. And well, for instance, with the diets, I just read something the other day about the NBC show, The Biggest Loser, where 14 of the 15 people over the last few seasons that lost all that weight have all gained that weight back plus some. So as you said, I'm not against diets for certain things. Like if you're a bodybuilder, or like when I was younger, I used to always diet before I went to the beach. And I guess you can still do that, but it's temporary. You get back and you start eating. And I mean, again, like you said, it's pretty obvious, but I think people are really still have that mindset, including myself, that the diets, you want to go on a diet to lose weight, and that you want to eat low fat. And those are the two things, or a couple things, that I have learned that are just not even remotely true.
Yeah, and the reason that it's still stuck in people's heads is because that's the information burned into our brains with every piece of media we see, whether it's the internet, whether it's magazines, whether it's television. The whole way, the psychological way that these companies get you to buy stuff is by making you feel inferior and saying you have something wrong with you and we have the product to fix it. So we want to believe that diets work because we see the pictures in the magazines, we see the transformational before and after pictures on TV, and say, oh, well, I must have that because I'm the guy in the before picture. And what is very, very true, and this is something that I go into much more in depth with Jonathan Baylor in a podcast that I did about calorie counting, is that calorie counting works short term. If you deprive yourself of food and you exercise like a maniac, you're going to lose weight. The point is, you need to look at the long-term implications. And I'm so glad you brought up the article about The Biggest Loser, because I saw that as well. And that was something that I talked about on a podcast way back in the day that I did with Mark Sisson, who is one of the godfathers of the paleo movement. And I can link to that show as well. But he also talked about how when you look at calorie deprivation over the long term, not only will you gain it back, you'll gain it back plus more weight. And that's because our bodies have this thing called a set point based on our hormones, based on our genetics. And your body's just saying, this is where I am. This is how much I think I should weigh. And this is how my body composition should look. And rather than dieting, you have to find a way to change that set point. And that's a hormonal thing. And that's about changing things in your life, changing the things that you eat, changing the way that you move, but they're long-term things. And it's very hard to play the long game when you want to lose 20 pounds in 30 days or whatever it is. So I'll put links to both of those shows. I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole. And for those that listen to my previous show, yes, you can take a drink. It's part of our little drinking game. But what's important to me now is we've heard where you are at this moment, which to a lot of people that do what you do for a living are saying, that's so cool. I want that, but I have no idea how to do it. Let's go back again to a year or two ago. What was the moment where you said, enough is enough? I have to do something about this. Was there a catalyst, or was it just you woke up one morning and you had this realization?
For me, it was several things. I mentioned having kids earlier. I've got 2 young kids, 4 and 6-year-old, and not that I was ill or feeling bad or even had been to the doctor or anything like that, because I know a lot of people will get inspired when they go to the doctor and they tell them you got to lose weight or that kind of thing. It was just thinking that I want to be around in the future for my kids was one of my things that just stuck in my head, kind of my purpose. And in combination with that was just wanting, just kind of looking in the mirror. I gotten up to a weight that I hadn't been at before. And just a combination of those things led me to where I wanted to do something about it. And that's really it. It's that simple, you know. You just have to have that trigger that motivates you.
Yeah, and for me, it was kids as well, where it used to be when I first started all this, it was just, well, I have to find a way to survive this industry. But then once I had kids, I said, well, I don't want to just survive. I want to be able to do my job and be successful, but not leave it all on the table, so to speak, and come home exhausted. I want to come home to my kids and have something left over. And that was my catalyst. And I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old too. So I know exactly what your life looks like. So you and I are living parallel universes right now.
Yeah. Now, I know that I've listened to your show enough where you really never had the weight issues. You had energy issues and other depression and that kind of thing. I've never really had that problem. Mine's always been weight. And so in the year or so that I have done this, I've dropped a little over 30 pounds, like maybe 35 pounds. And so that's made me feel a lot better all over. I mean, not only how my clothes fit and that kind of thing, but just health and wellness. I got my blood work done. My blood pressure was perfect. My everything, my cholesterol, my good cholesterol was good. My bad cholesterol was low. And it was, before that, they were all borderline numbers for sure. And so I had, all those things. It's just amazing how you really can change your health just by what you eat. And I know that, again, sounds so silly, but for whatever reason, I think a lot of people, and myself majorly included, just don't think about that. Because I can remember a time in my life not too long ago where I thought, I can eat whatever I want as long as I do the treadmill. And that is just so stupid, to be blunt, now that I kind of have seen the light. It's the diet. I've learned, for me anyway, the diet is the most important thing. Exercise would be second.
Yeah, and there's plenty of science to back up that at this point, when scientists and researchers have looked at diet versus exercise and body composition, the number is roughly around 80%, where 80% of your body composition is determined by diet. So that means that you can't exercise away your beer gut or being overweight. So if, like you said, you were doing that, you were on the treadmill every day, walking, jogging. And it's like, why am I not losing any weight? And go to any gym in America. Anybody listening, go to a gym, just sit and watch the people on the treadmills, and then go back some other time. Do you think people are going to look drastically different? No, it's because the mentality that you talked about. Well, as long as I get 378 calories burned on my little digital readout on the treadmill, and I eat less than 378 calories of junk, well, that means I'm going to lose weight. But the body doesn't work that way. The body is biochemical, not just thermodynamic. So it's that mindset that people have to get out of where, and it's funny because I had done a show about NAB and trying to be healthy at the NAB convention in Vegas. And I had backlash about it where people were saying, well, what's the big deal? I'm going to get 20,000 steps so I can eat whatever I want. And it's like, you can, but that's not an equation that's going to lead to better health. And it sounds like you had that realization as well.
I have, and that's been one of the biggest things for me is concentrating on the diet. And again, I work out. And then the other thing, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but doing strength training. And I've always worked out a little bit, ever since I was a teenager. I've had a weight bench and done various weight training and strength training. Never that consistent, though, mainly just here and there. And so the idea, though, now I do strength training far more than I do cardio. And because I learned about, and I'd always heard about this, but I never really understood it, the idea of the afterburn. And so the afterburn effect I've seen dramatic results, because that's the last thing I'll touch on is, instead of focusing on my weight now, I focus on my body fat percentage. And that has really opened my eyes too, because I was really surprised where my body fat percentage was when I started to where it is now. It is, and compared to what I weigh. And I've always heard that. It's like, if an NFL player use BMI, they're morbidly obese. But of course, in reality, they're just full of muscle.
Yeah, it's great that you brought that up, because that is a very common misconception where people are just focused on the number on the scale and they don't focus on anything else. Or they're thinking, oh, well, I'm focusing on my BMI, so I'm kind of at the advanced level of tracking my health. And BMI has been absolutely vastly discredited for its inability to account for specific things like muscle density. So like you said, you can have an NFL player where his BMI number makes you think he's going to die of a heart attack tomorrow because most of their weight is based on their muscle. So for those that don't know, BMI just stands for body mass index, and it's a very simple equation where you're just taking your height and your body weight and it's giving you a number. And I can put a calculator, very simple, I'll just put it in the show notes for anybody that wants to look at it, but it doesn't account for anything. It's two simple numbers, height and weight. And if you're perfectly normal, average, then yes, it will probably have some significance. But let's say that you're really, really tall or you're really, really short, then numbers are going to start to get a little bit skewed. And if you're really muscular or athletic, your numbers are really skewed. So when I looked at my BMI when I first learned it, because I was an athlete for years and I still do trainings for Spartan races and stuff, I freaked out. Like, oh my God, why is my BMI so high? And then I talked to my doctor and he's like, just forget about the BMI. You've been an athlete, like you have, more than average muscle density. So don't worry about it. What I want you to do is start worrying about body fat percentage, which is exactly where you went. So I have a scale that Fitbit makes. It's called the Fitbit Aria, which uploads all my information to the Fitbit server, so I never have to track my weight or my body fat percentage because, frankly, I try to automate as much as I can. So that's a nice thing where I just wake up in the morning, step on the scale. I don't even have to look at it. Half the time I don't. I just want the information. But the body fat is one that when that starts to go up, then I get concerned. But your weight can fluctuate by as much as like 5 pounds in a single day.
Yeah, it's funny. We have the Aria as well. My wife and I use it, and I love it. So because I've really bought into the Fitbit ecosystem.
Yeah, it's great. And I already feel myself going down that road, the tendency that I have to just go on and on and on and go down these giant rabbit holes. Take a drink. So what I want to do is go backwards now to the moment that we just talked about, which was you saying, all right, I've got kids. I want to live for them. I want to have a longer, healthier life. What was step one for you? Where did you start? Did you read a blog? Did you listen to a podcast? Or did you just say, I'm going to start experimenting? Where did you start? Because it's important to me that somebody listening not only says, ooh, I want to kind of get to the mindset where Blake is, but I want to know the roadmap. So let's help them find that roadmap.
Sure. Everyone obviously has their own way. And the way I started was one of my clients I do a lot of work for is a company called Advocare. And they are a sports nutrition company. And they have, I've heard you talk about Shakeology and through Beachbody, and they're in that vein. And so my wife and I did one of their programs called a 24-day challenge, where basically for 24 days you go on, it's not even a diet at all, a strict diet at all. They have various supplements and such that you take along with sensible food, mainly proteins and vegetables and lowish carb. And I did that for 24 days and lost 13 pounds. And so that was my kickstart, so to speak. And what I do from them now is you mainly do their meal replacement shakes. And that's why I brought up Shakeology earlier. It's basically I have a protein shake is what it really is. And it's got a lot of protein in it. I think it's got 20 grams of protein. And I do that either in the morning for breakfast or after a workout. And so that's really, and then from there, I started what you just mentioned. I really got into Tim Ferriss and Dave Asprey and read a lot about paleo. And paleo is probably the way I try to track my diet, but I do still eat some brown rice and I eat lowish carb. And so it's kind of a blend. It's not strict paleo by any means, but I eat a lot of protein and vegetables.
So basically you eat like a caveman, like a Paleolithic man.
Yeah, that's just tended to work for me. And I eat tons of almonds. I eat a lot of good fats. I'll eat avocado and a lot of chicken. I eat tons of chicken. And it's funny because when we had kids, we switched everything to organic. We did organic milk for the kids and we did organic meat and all that kind of stuff. But since I was still eating fast food in addition to that, it didn't make a difference. But now we do all grass-fed beef and grass-fed milk or whatever. And it's those and that's the other thing we touched on it earlier that I've really learned. It really isn't about, because you want to lose weight quick. Everyone does, or you want to see results quickly. But what I've really learned, and it's a cliche, but it really is a marathon versus a sprint. for the way you eat and just continually moving forward, continually just doing small things. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it wasn't just one big thing, although the 24-day challenge is what kickstarted me. From there, it's little things on a daily basis. It's taking the stairs. It's not having that cupcake with lunch. It's being active, going out. My Fitbit buzzes me. I mentioned earlier some alarms, and every day at 3 o'clock, I go and take like a 10 or 15-minute walk around the block. Just little things like that add up to getting in shape and being healthy and being well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that has listened to the show before knows that all I keep saying is it's about baby steps. It's about taking the first step. So again, if somebody's listening and they're thinking, well, I don't want to have to exercise 5 days a week, and I don't want to have to completely eliminate everything from my refrigerator, my pantry, and I'm not going to spend all this money on organic grass-fed meat and blah, blah, blah. It's like you just pick one thing and you start. That's the important thing, because people get so overwhelmed and they think, I can't do all of these things at once. It's too much. Don't do all of them. Do one of them. But then you start to build a tiny bit of momentum and you do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So that's the key, is to find that first step and just get started. And it really sounds like that approach is working for you.
It is. And one thing, and I don't remember where exactly I read this or heard this, but I have really lived by this and it's helped a lot. I don't ever think of it as cheating. I think of it as treating. You know, you may treat yourself to something. You may have pizza one night, even though I don't really eat pizza, but you may have a piece of cake. The thing I don't do, though, is I never do it twice in a row. So I might do it for dinner, but then the next morning I'm right back on, or I might do it for lunch, but then for dinner. It's the idea of, you know, if you went and had something bad 2 or 3 days in a row, then you may create another bad habit that you eliminated. At least that's my mindset. So I might have something that I normally don't have, like maybe I love pasta and like Alfredo sauce or something like that. I might have that on a weekend, but then the next day I'm right back to it.
Yeah, and I had the exact same philosophy, and I fall prey to this all the time, especially because I'm so health conscious. Sometimes I'll kind of give myself more of a break. I'm like, oh, well, I've been eating so well, I'm just going to take a weekend off. And if I take the whole weekend off, that's a disaster. If I just say I'm going to take this one meal, I'm totally going to enjoy myself. I don't care what's in it. I don't care the ingredients. I don't care how much sugar, whatever. I'm fine. But if I'm like, I'm just going to take the next 3 days and treat myself, it takes weeks for me to recover, because like I've told people on the show, I am a sugar-holic. I'm not somebody that grew up on alfalfa sprouts and kale. I grew up on the 80s diet. I grew up on Fruit by the Foot and Lucky Charms and Fruity Pebbles, and like those pleasure centers in my brain just light up like crazy. It's great that you brought up the fact that you have to be careful about how to, and I like that you said treat yourself. I'd read that same article and the scientific research behind it, where it is important to not cheat, but treat. So I'm glad that you brought that up. The next question that I have for you, now that you've kind of gone through this transformation, have you noticed a difference in the way that foods actually taste? Because this is a huge thing where people say, well, I like my Diet Coke and I like my cupcakes and I like my pizza. But have you noticed that now that you've changed your palate, that things actually taste different to you?
I have in some respects, but the crazy thing is I have not gone back and had a Diet Coke. I've not had one soda at all, because I just, and I've heard some of my friends that have done this and they go back and have Diet Coke. They'll say, it doesn't taste good to me. And so I have had that in some respects, but mainly it's more about, you mentioned earlier, how the food affects my body. And so when I do splurge or something, one thing I didn't mention earlier, and I think I'm actually really surprised how many people battle this, like indigestion or acid reflux. I used to have a lot of acid reflux. And since I started this new lifestyle for a year and a half, I may have had it 1 or 2 times, period. And I used to have it maybe several times a month. And so that kind of stuff is another reason it makes me not want to get a gigantic thing of tetrazzini or whatever, full of carbs and full of various red sauces or what have you. And I mean, I do love Italian food. Mexican food is probably my favorite food. I mean, I'm from Texas, and so I love Tex-Mex. And ironically, though, I found that you can actually eat Mexican food in a decent way if you just don't eat the carb stuff. We'll make a lot of various type of taco meals at home that I consider them fairly healthy. So, but the point being is, Yes, some of the things I have had in the past do taste different, but it's more about how my body feels more than taste.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that happened for me as well. And I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this on the show before, and people might be shocked to hear this, but I was addicted to Mountain Dew. It was when I was quite a bit younger, but I had, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 Mountain Dews a day. And talking about taste, I think it must have been a year or two ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I thought to myself, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to see if I still enjoy it. And I spit it out. It tasted like battery acid to me because
Wow.
my palate has changed so much I couldn't swallow. It was disgusting. And I had the same reaction to Red Bull, where at one point, either it was in college or when I first got out here, I wasn't downing Red Bulls the way that some people do, where they're just kind of chain drinkers, like from one can to the next. But I use them from time to time to get through long stretches. And I cannot even swallow either of those anymore. And I had the same experience with a lot of other things that have a lot of sugar in them, where if I go for a decent amount of time without sugar, then I'll have something that used to taste rather bland to me, and it will pucker my face because it's so sweet. So that's
real Coke will do that to me, or it used to.
Yes, when I was on the Mountain Dew kick, part of it was Coke as well. I never really got into Coke habitually, but I still enjoyed it. Coke is another thing that I can't swallow anymore. If I try to take one drink, I have to spit it out because it's so abhorrently disgusting to me. Not because I'm a health nut, it's just that's how bad it tastes because my palate has changed so much.
It also, not to pick on Coke too much here, but it like burns my throat, literally.
Oh yeah, let's pick on Coke, please. Let's do it. I have no problem with it.
Okay.
Well, now that you brought that up, it's funny that you brought up the burning your throat thing, because they've actually done videos on YouTube and studies of how Coke is one of the best substances to use to clean toilets. It actually does a better job than Clorox or any of the different chemicals that you can buy as a toilet cleaner. Coke is the best one.
Well, I remember seeing those videos. I don't think this was pre-YouTube, where people would clean their car battery. They'd pour it on battery acid.
Yep. And people are drinking that 5, 6 times a day just to stay alert and stay awake and focused.
Yeah, the main thing with soda too, and since with the kids, we have little friends of ours that are a child of our kids that will actually drink soda. And to me, it's just baffling. And so our kids do not drink soda, and we don't let them even know what it really is. And I'm not saying when they get older, I'll let them, make their own choice to an extent, but just soda. Have you seen the documentary I think it's called Fed Up?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I love that film.
Yeah, that's great. And it's really scary. That's a whole nother subject to go on to, but not only does it affect us as the parents, but man, it can really affect the kids. And so that's the other thing. I'm trying to set up some good ways for my kids to be a good role model for my kids when it comes to diet and exercise, so they don't have some of the same problems I did.
Yeah, that's huge. It's another one of the reasons I do it, is to set a good example and provide the education that I didn't get, because growing up as a kid in the 80s, all this stuff is great.
Yeah, exactly. I did the same thing. Low fat was what I thought I was supposed to eat. I still sometimes that's in the back of my mind. My mom still occasionally will talk about low fat stuff, and I'm just like, Mom, don't listen to that anymore.
Yeah, and the science is definitive at this point. So if somebody is thinking, well, I'm having my Yoplait low-fat yogurt and my no-fat milk and my no-fat this and no-fat that, like, I almost guarantee you probably feel like crap on a daily basis, and you can't focus and you have no energy, because that's what fat is for. So,
and you don't know why. That's the scary thing. It's almost not people's fault,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question that the fault lies with the food companies and the marketing. Like, that's where it all came from, because until the 60s and 70s, nobody thought that fat was bad, but they changed they turned the tables around because they realized it's a lot cheaper to produce high carb foods and high sugar foods. That's how you get people to buy more, because you put more sugar and more carbs in the food, your brain says, I want more and I'm not full yet, and it makes you feel hungrier and hungrier, which therefore makes more money. So that's where all of this came from. It didn't come from all kinds of, reliable science. The science has made it very clear at this point that fat is not bad for you. There are still spectrums of what fat is good and what fat is bad. So if you're thinking, well, McDonald's fries are fattening, wrong fat. But there are a lot of fats that are indeed good for you. And going back one step, when you were talking about soda, in our house, I treat soda like smoking. And that may sound a little bit off the beaten path. It may sound a little extreme, but I don't think that it is. I think that over the next 10 to 20 years, that drinking soda or drinking Coke is going to be seen the same way that smoking is looked at now, because 50 years ago, doctors prescribed smoking for stress. So I think that soda is going to become the same thing when it comes to sugar, treats, cupcakes, birthday cake. I just make sure they're doing it in moderation, and I want to make sure that they enjoy themselves and enjoy life, and they're not having kale salads at a birthday party, which, by the way, living in Southern California, I've seen that firsthand, and it's terrifying.
I can imagine.
Like little 3-year-olds and their mommy saying, no, I'm sorry, you can't have cake, but I brought you a kale salad. Like, oh my God, gun to my head.
Sure. Yeah, you still want to live, and that's the thing. I mean, there's always a balance.
Yes, but when it comes to soda, it is absolutely forbidden. And when they say, can I have a soda? No, you may not have a soda. It is bad for you. So now my kids are already growing up thinking, well, I can't have a soda, and I guarantee they're going to try it. Just like they would try cigarettes when they're 13 years old. That's fine. But I'm burning it into their brains how bad having that soda is for them. So it's no longer, well, the soda's bad, but I'm going to treat myself because my dad said it was okay. It's like, no. You don't treat yourself with a cigarette. You don't treat yourself with a Coke. Like, that's the way that I feel about it. And I think that that's where things are going to go in the next 10 or 20 years as this movement online continues with all this education coming out.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I drink a lot of is iced tea. Because I'm not against, I mean, I know some people go no caffeine, but I still like caffeine to an extent. And so I'll drink unsweet tea. And there's a brand called Pure Leaf. I don't know if you've seen that around or not.
I've heard of it, yeah.
It's really good, but here's what's really interesting. And you mentioned sodas maybe going away one day. I think it was independent originally, and then it got bought by Lipton, I believe. But I noticed on the label recently that I guess Pepsi now owns Lipton. So the point being here, you wonder if the soda companies kind of see the writing on the wall in the future, and they're going out and getting stuff that will probably, I mean, because obviously Coke sells bottled water. Isn't Dasani, or isn't that their brand?
Yes.
One of those. So, they're diversifying because one day soda may be gone.
Oh, yeah. And they're absolutely seeing the writing on the wall, and they're buying up all the organic brands and all these. Like, if somebody has a little tiny farm and they have a nice little pretty green label on their milk or their health drink, whatever it is, these giant companies are saying, well, that's what people are buying now, so we're going to buy them. So if the Coca-Cola company decides that selling the healthy, unsweetened drinks is what's going to make them gazillions of dollars and they switch over, great. I have no problem with that. It's just continuing to tell people that there's nothing wrong with the products that they currently have. That's where I have the issue. But they want to make bazillions of dollars selling things that are actually good for people. I have no problem with that at all. Like, it's not like they have to go away and other people need to replace them. As long as they decide this is what makes money, and we as consumers vote with our checkbooks. Well, actually, probably people don't have checkbooks anymore, but vote with your debit cards, vote with your chip cards, whatever you want to call them now. That's what's going to change things, is making that vote with your wallet.
No, I agree completely.
So then, for any last words for somebody that's saying, this is the store, I want to be on the show someday, and I want to have Blake Calhoun's story where I was somebody that was overweight and working long, crazy hours in front of an edit workstation, and I want to start making some of these changes. Outside of some of the things we've already talked about, is there any last thing that you want to say, hey, here's something that's going to really help you out where I hit a roadblock or I was stumbling and this really helped me through it? Do you have any final ideas or resources that could help somebody that just wants to do it the simple, long-term way?
I would say the two things for me are, the first and foremost was just to, and we've touched on it, but to make sure you understand that it's a new lifestyle. It is not a short-term fix. It's just the way, and this actually helps me because I've gotten to the point where I have no issue with it at all. I mean, it's just, this is the way it is. This is the new normal, which is a good new normal. And in that same breath, for me, it's what is your purpose? What is your motivating factor? And mine is my family and my future. And again, not that I was on my deathbed or anything like that, but I'm in my 40s. And so I was on that path, or if I didn't make a change, once I got into my 50s and further down the road, I could have some serious health problems. Not that, you never know what life's going to hold, but you want to do everything you can beyond the genetics you're born with to help you not end up in a bad place. And so your purpose, what's your motivating factor, and then that it's a lifestyle, not a diet, is what's kept me going.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better myself. So now, as promised, I want to give you a couple of minutes to kind of talk about your latest endeavor. And the reason that I have this as part of my podcast sponsorship and why I think it's important is that you're providing a service that's helping to make an editor's life easier. And that's part of what I'm trying to do in this program is provide tips for productivity, tips for health, tips for efficiency. So you actually, at the end of the day, have energy left over to live your life either for yourself, for your friends, or for your family. And you provide a service that does that. So it just as a full disclaimer, you didn't say that you wanted to do this. I'm allowing you to do it because I believe in what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about Cinemoti and the services that you provide.
Sure. No, actually, I didn't know you were going to do this at all. I mean, the funny thing is the reason I even connected with your blog and then your podcast was because, number one, the way we knew each other from the Streamies, but also because of the fitness side of it. I mean, that's the part that I was really attracted to. And so from that, I had started this side business, and that's pretty much what it is, of doing various type of second unit photography in stock. And one of the things that we do that's a little bit different than the other guys is we are really catered towards the technical side of filmmaking. The big boys like Shutterstock and all those, we're not even trying to compete with them. We don't do the typical kind of corporate motion background. That's great. Those places do that. Our stuff is geared more towards indie film or commercials. So we have background driving plates that a lot of people may or may not have. And the thing that kind of sets us apart on all that is that we offer most of our footage in RAW and also in log, which is pretty unusual. I don't know that I found that out. So you can get it in a log version or a Rec 709 or RAW, depending on what camera was used to shoot. And then also everything we offer that's a QuickTime codec would be in ProRes. And so a lot of other companies are starting to do that. But in the past, you'd go to a stock footage site and they would have like JPEG 2000. Now, I'm talking technical here, but if you're listening to the show and you're an editor, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, the other thing that you offer, and I didn't mean to cut you off because maybe you were going there, is it's not just background plates and it's not just other second unit footage. It's really cool things like foreground elements. Like I'd never even heard of stuff like this before. That was really cool.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things where things come up that you need, and that's how things get invented. For lack of a better phrase, I was doing some film work and I had an establishing shot of a house. And I needed a shot of a tree branch, or I wish there would have been a tree branch blowing in front of it, just to defocus it and add some depth of field or shallow depth of field, or give some production value to the shot. And so I looked high and low, and this was several years ago, and could not find anything online like that. And so we had an idea to go ahead and implement that. So we have tree branches and things like that. We have digital extras, and they're actually live action people that are crossing frame. We shot them on a Red Epic in 5K. And they're shot on green screen. And so you can composite them in, and instead of having a PA or someone walk in front of the camera, when you're out on location, you can add that in post. And so just little things to add that next layer of polish or next level of polish, I think, is one thing that we specialize in. And again, just people that want to have high quality footage, but also are looking for the more technical side of things when it comes to color grading, being able to match footage into your show. That's where log and raw and that kind of stuff really comes in handy.
Yeah, and that was the difference maker for me, because when you first sent it to me and it said second unit footage, I'm like, all right, well, there are a whole bunch of companies that I can get motion graphic backgrounds or shots of buildings or cityscapes or whatever it is. But it was when I saw the digital extras, the foreground elements, I was thinking, I don't know of any other place where I can get that stuff. And those are things that I've thought about before as I'm editing, or that producers or directors just said, oh, do we have a shot with this? I'm like, no, we don't have anything. Sorry, you didn't shoot it. But now you don't have to just say, well, we don't have it. You can say, well, yeah, we can get something, we can create it. So that was the difference maker for me that really perked up my ears, was all those different elements.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And we're a very small company. We're basically run like an independent film would be. In other words, we are grassroots. And so the more awareness we get, that's how we're trying to build, try to get a little bit of the market. And I've been reaching out to the various filmmaker friends of mine, and we've gotten some different footage in different shows and different films and that kind of thing. But again, it's about building brand awareness and building up our inventory as well. We have tons of stuff that we've shot that we're slowly but surely getting online. So anyway, I love the show, and so we thought it'd be a good fit just to get out here, and we like fitness and we like posts. So there you go.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm all for supporting people that would consider themselves like indie filmmakers, which means that you most likely are working 20 hours a day and taking dump trucks of money and just pouring them into holes where you never see it again. Because that's the world of indie filmmaking.
You nailed it. Huh? Wow. It sounds like you've been here too. So, okay.
Well, guess what? That's what it's like running a blog and a podcast as well. So it's exactly like the indie film world, except I'm doing it with health and fitness. So yes, I can very much relate to that. Well, anyway, that having been said, I'm going to give people a special link where they can go to check out Cinemody. It's just fitnessandpost.com/Cinemody, which you probably already heard in the sponsorship read. But also you have a coupon code that people can use as well, correct?
We do, yes. I believe it's FIP15. They can get 15% off any order.
Yes, and I highly encourage anybody that is in post that needs cool elements that you might not be able to find elsewhere to check out this site. I'm a huge fan of it, and there's a reason that you're a sponsor, because I don't just take checks from people. It has to be stuff that I believe in and want to spread the word about. So I'm a big believer in all of that. So that having been said, I want to thank you so much for being willing to share your story, and hopefully we've inspired a few people in post to start taking some small steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm a big fan, as they say.
Thank you for listening to episode 80 of the Fitness and Post podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to access any of the resources discussed, visit our show notes at fitnessandpost.com/80. As a reminder, if you have a question that you'd like us to answer on an upcoming Q&A episode, just submit your questions at fitnessandpost.com/questions. For everyone that I read on the show, I will send a Fitness and Post t-shirt and a blender bottle. And I will then do a random drawing amongst those winners, and one person a month will receive a 30-day supply of my favorite green supplement on the planet, Athletic Greens. I discovered this stuff via Tim Ferriss, and it is awesome. I drink 1 tablespoon with water in the morning, and I get 100% of my daily required amount of greens. Plus, it doesn't taste like the bottom of a shoe like most green powders. It actually tastes really good. To learn more, just visit fitnessandpost.com/greens. This episode is sponsored by GeekDesk. GeekDesk provides high-quality adjustable height desks. With the simple click of a button, you can change the height of your desk from sitting to standing in seconds, which can help you become more productive, ease and prevent pain, stay healthy, and live longer. I've owned a GeekDesk myself for years, and I love it. They're strong, durable, and dare I say, even quite sexy. GeekDesk serves office workers, corporate professionals, creative professionals, and businesses of all sizes. To learn more about the different options that they offer, visit fitnessandpost.com/geekdesk. Elevate your work, improve your health, increase your productivity. GeekDesk. This episode is sponsored by Cinemody. Cinemody produces high-quality, royalty-free, and post-friendly second-unit stock and visual effects footage for filmmakers. Let's say that you have a restaurant scene, but you just don't have enough activity in the shot. Need some additional extras? Cinemody has the footage for that. Or maybe you need to add some 3-dimensional depth to a flat shot. Want to add a defocused tree branch in the foreground? Cinemody has that too. Their flagship second unit post-friendly footage features live-action visual effects content that can easily and affordably add production value and polish to your next project. You can find their second unit collection at cinemody.com. That's CINEMOTI.com. Thank you for listening. Be well.